Tonight we welcome Geraldine Orozco, who is also one of the speakers at the Journey to Truth conference, which is happening as this airs, May 21st. She is a hypnotherapist, epigenetic psychotherapist, and she is known for having amazing, incredible, in-depth interdimensional contact experiences and knowledge of the human-alien hybridization programs. Please welcome Geraldine. Before we get started, if you are interested in CBD or finding a new CBD supplier, I've partnered with Hopewell Farms, and you can get 10% off this very high quality CBD. I take it every single day. It helps with meditation. It helps with my health in general, and we have 10% off with code Lily10 in the description. And if you are looking for a Reiki healing session, if you need your chakras cleared and balanced, or you would just like to work with the inner earth beings, I have a channeled deep chakra healing session available with the link in the description. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Starseed Chats. I'm Lily Nova, and today we have Geraldine Orozco. I think I said it correctly. Here on the show tonight. She's going to be speaking at the upcoming Journey to Truth conference, which this is probably playing the week of, and I'm very excited to meet her. What attracted me to your work is, I did an interview on somebody else's channel recently, Spaced Out Radio. And they mentioned, they're like, you have to meet Geraldine. I guess there's some similarities between us, and we're both, very much about the ETs. And he was telling me about your work with like DNA activation. And that's one of my favorite things, working with the DNA. That's like the number one thing that the star being started teaching me as I started having these contact experiences, and then the hybridization program. So I'm very excited to have you on tonight to chat about this. Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Lily. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, I like your energy too. I knew whenever I saw you and I heard your name a few times, it was like a synchronicity. I have to talk to you. So thank you so much for coming on. Do you want to share just a little bit of background about what you do? It sounds like you have a lot of different titles and you kind of dabble in a lot of different things.
Yes. My primary area of work is as an epigenetic psychotherapist, and I became an epigenetic psychotherapist as a result of my contact experiences and my evolution in understanding contact, questioning contact. What is contact? Are we all just having a psychosis, or is there something more to this human experience? And essentially, my areas, I started with a meditation group in the San Francisco Bay Area. I very, very early on, our group grew into a corporate meditation wellness programs that we did major companies like Google and Facebook and everything here in the Bay Area. But deep diving into meditation more and more helped me fine-tune the questions that I had about myself and about the world around me. Mm-hmm. And I think that in 2013, I took about 4 months off work and I started to deep dive into meditation. And that's when I started to really access some of these deprogramming. This is where I taught myself how to deprogram the emotional database that holds all of the codes of our programming, everything from ancestral programs going all the way. I was able to revisit all of the memories going back into the womb. And then I started to look at past lives and deconstructing kind of my perceptions of this construct that we live in, right? What we call the matrix. This is what really opened way for me. As a result of this work, I had a physical conscious experience in 2013. I was taken on board a craft with Grace and introduced to my hybrid children. And upon returning from that experience, I was activated with psychic abilities to the point where I couldn't leave my house for about 3 months. And that completely changed my life because I had to learn how to see the world in a different way, fine-tune my sensitivities, and really understand the levels of information that were available to me now. And it wasn't really until 2017 that I became public with my contact experience through the documentary Extraordinary the Seeding, which focuses on the hybridization program. And that is when I started to really deep dive into the questions. I changed my life completely. I sold another business that I had. I had another business. I ended my engagement And I knew that I needed to do this work, so it was a very drastic change. Within like a month, everything just changed, and I
Yeah.
dedicate myself to doing this work now. So that's kind of how I got into it.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's similar to me, like the UFOs started showing up, then suddenly, like I was a nutritionist teaching nutrition and cooking classes. I went to school, got a dietetics degree. That was my passion. And then everything just halted and doing all this inner work, starting to meditate, all the trauma and healing. But I knew like this is the most important thing.
Hmm.
This is going to change everything, what's
Yeah,
happening right now.
yeah.
So
Wow,
exciting.
that's
Yeah.
amazing. Well, I'm so happy to meet a fellow seeker and a person that is dedicating themselves to this information, because what I discovered, and I'm sure you're also discovering this, is that the hybridization program, the conversation about DNA, the structure of our biological system is actually, in my opinion, the key to linking consciousness, science, and spirituality, and this interdimensional element, which is the E.T. conversation. It is that pinnacle point in between. So yeah, I'm excited to jump in.
Yeah, so I've been focusing on DNA so much the past, I guess it's almost going on 3 years now,
Hmm.
and I call it Starseed Boot Camp. Basically, these beings took me through a crash course of everything. I'm like, I need to get in good with some scientists and wait until like the scientists get on board and start actually exploring like our DNA and what's happening, the psychic abilities that are suddenly coming online. It's incredible. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So going back to the hybrid program, so that's something that's a little bit newer to me. The star being started showing me hybrid babies. Well, they started showing me
Uh,
babies
uh,
probably about like 4 or 5 months ago. And I'm not like I never really wanted children, or I wasn't really sure. I never really felt drawn to that. So every time I'd see like this baby or this, I'm like, no, 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 no. And it took them a while showing me that. And then finally I discovered they first introduced me to hybrid brothers and sisters that I had from
Interesting.
my mom. Yeah, and then they started introducing me into more that I haven't talked about too much on my channel yet. But going back to your contact experiences, it sounds like there's tons of different hybridization programs out there. And people just have such an array of different types of contact experiences going along with this. So could you share a little bit of like how did you discover this? What were your contact experiences, or is there like a one major contact experience that jumps out having to do with this, or even just ET contact?
Yeah. So I'm a lifelong contactee. I've been having contact since the age of 5, but I didn't understand that that was contact when it was happening, because I didn't have the understanding, I didn't have the background, I didn't have the language, and also I wasn't directly connecting the concept of ETs with this kind of phenomena at the time. So at the age of 5, there was a bright light that came into my room. I had missing time. At the age of 15, I was in South America. I was walking down the street. Everything went black. I had missing time. And then I find myself in my bed at like 3 in the morning. Nobody knew how I got home. When I got home, nothing. Another missing time scenario. And I had a clear image of what had happened to me, but I thought it was a dream. Like I couldn't quite place it. And when I was 22, I was out at a dinner in San Francisco, and I get up, go to the bar, drawn by this very tall, very handsome man. Next thing I know, missing time. Um, I find myself in my bed the next day. My car is still in San Francisco, which is about 45 minutes away from where I live. My friends hadn't been able to find me. Um, and when we checked the video camcorder of the restaurant, trying to figure out what happened, like did someone do something to you? Like how did you disappear? There was no footage of me leaving the place. There was no footage of the gentleman coming into the place or leaving the place. Essentially, there was no gentleman. Nobody saw him. Nobody saw. Only I saw the gentleman. So it was just these kinds of very strange experiences. At 24, I had this amoeba, is what the doctor would call it, an amoeba, but he couldn't identify what kind. It just behaved like an amoeba in the body. And I was severely sick for about 2 months. And No, 2 weeks. And within those 2 weeks, they tried to give me all kinds of antibiotics. After this point, my body couldn't handle any kind of medications. I can't take birth control. I can't take any kind of drugs of any kind, not even recreational drugs of any kind. I can't even drink alcohol, to the point where the body's very sensitive. And from one day to the next, I became healed. I had the dream of this white light coming to me, touching my forehead, these beings, and then that's it. The next day, the doctor, from giving me 3 months left to live, if they couldn't find what was happening, to completely done, fixed, and healed. This was just a major. And so, at the time, we were just so grateful. We were thinking, we're so grateful that we understood what happened. And of course, you're not going to place aliens. I don't call them aliens. I call them interdimensionals now, but you're not going to link these kinds of events. So I've also had pregnancies that occurred when I was virgin at the age of 16, in that missing time experience that I mentioned earlier. I became pregnant. I didn't know I was pregnant, but when I went to the doctor and I was checked, the doctor said, "You had pregnancies." I said, "No, I'm a virgin." And that was also proven right at the time. So I grew up very innocent. I haven't had sexual contact. I was 18 years old, because I come from a very Catholic kind of family. And so what happened is that these kinds of things that happen through life, like, I didn't make sense with them, and I didn't know that they were connected until I had this experience in 2013 where these children were introduced to me. And the dreams that I had in combination with seeing these children, I had reoccurring dreams of my mother introducing this beautiful child with golden long hair as a child over and over again. And the child they introduced to me in this craft in 2013 was the child with the golden hair. So, I began to recall in the craft, as I'm meeting the children, all of the memories of being with them, the previous contact experiences. And I wanted to make more sense of it. In 2017, I had a hypnotherapy, and I had been purifying my mind and my body for several years before that. So by the time I did that hypnotherapy, I began to channel information, and my questions were directed specifically towards the hybridization program. What is it? Where do we come from? What's the origin of it? And I began to download information about the conception of the seeding of humanity on this planet Earth since the very beginning of time. And I began to speak words that I never heard before, that I never even knew. Words like Nephilim, words like, Pleiadians, Arcturians, bloodlines. And so it was structured to me in this way that was very specific.
Mm-hmm.
And, I thought I had made the entire thing up. It took me a major existential crisis. I went through several of these downloads. These hypnotherapies are fully public now. You can see them and watch them, and probably see my own evolution, actually, as I'm going through the many different sessions of uncovering information. But what I discovered is that the information about the seeding of the hybridization program essentially takes us back to the origin of our own human race on this planet. We are a hybrid race. And the hybridization program is essentially a combination of three main bloodlines that are seeding life on this planet. And it goes into a very, very deep conversation about how this functions. But essentially, these main bloodlines cultivating lineages of DNA through history that have then spread out to create the Earth, the planet, the human race as we know it today. Mm-hmm. And there's categorization and self-organization that occurs naturally of this information. But what I find through this information, and also through the sessions that I do with hypnotherapy with my own clients and experiencers in my group, is that, first of all, ET contact runs in the family. It is something that is passed down through generations, just the way trauma is passed down 20 generations back. You can, see the traits of that being expressed in our psyche now. So we kind of, the interdimensional realm, our sleep time, our dream time, is when human is most conscious. It's most actually awake. That's when we're most active. So the more we become lucid, the more we begin to remember some of these experiences. And I think a lot of people are remembering them now as the veils are thinning. So really quickly, let me explain what the hybridization program is.
Yeah.
The hybridization program essentially starts with implantation at an early age, usually between the age of 5 to 7. Why? Because this is the main programming and development phase of a human. By the age of 7, they have established their root core belief systems and perceptions that will define the entire life. This is both having to do with experiential contracts in the physical and interdimensional. So the implantations are meant to monitor what happens to the body when it's ready, when it's not ready to interact or to play out the agreements that have already been made with this human. The next is insemination. Okay, once the human has developed certain traits, and this is the development of traits and preparation for the participation in the hybridization program, has to do with what DNA is activated in the human up until that point. When they activate certain aspects of their DNA, they are ready in order to create certain kind of life forms. And it will also define the kind of programs that they participate in. There are three main programs of hybridization. There is a Pleiadian, which is a more humanoid program. There is a Draco-Reptilian, and there is a military. The Draco-Reptilian and the Dracos are the original origin race of most of these species since the origin of humanity. And from there were spliced all of the species that we have. This is not some, it's somewhat genetically modified, but the organic version of this is just simply the self-organization of vibrational frequencies from high to low. Okay, so all the beings that we interact with, we are filtering them through our own perception, but they all have certain frequencies and they all dominate certain dimensional realms based on those frequencies. So we have that in our DNA, and they manage and they create something called councils. Councils are primarily the ones that manage certain DNA lineage families, and there's agreements with the councils and with an individual to create certain hybrids or to have certain experiences or to carry certain things out. So essentially, after the insemination process, now the insemination is a very important thing, and we can talk about that some other time, but the selection process of the partners to participate in the creation of hybrids are both a terrestrial program, terrestrial, I don't want to say breeding, but terrestrial program in that we unite with souls that are specifically designed to create life energetically. It's the union of energy that's actually creating before even sexual contact. And some of these unions are orchestrated interdimensionally in crafts. So sometimes humans will find themselves having these incredible relationships in dream state. And it isn't until years later they meet each other in some of these support groups. It happens all the time in my support group. They saw each other on board craft. Okay, so this is telling us that there's an entire organization to this kind of connection. Yeah. Right. So the next after that is the gestation process. Now the gestation process is sped up. It's something very interesting depending on the vibrational frequency. The darker and heavier the program creating the organism, like let's say a draconian, the more implantations and the more interference there could be on the physical body. Okay, so people, in my case, I got very sick sometimes because there's technology that is inserted into the body in order to sustain this level of vibrational frequency through a gestation process. And remember that it's not just physical; it's also etheric. Okay, so then there is an extraction. The extraction process can be many different things. We can talk about that, but they are put into incubation tanks. And when I say incubation tanks, I mean walls and walls and walls and walls of incubation tanks because most humans, and I'm talking about men and women, are participating in these programs in dream state. Almost everyone. Okay. The next is a presentation. Okay. So once the extraction is taken, usually there will be an orchestration of a contact experience where the person, or in dream state, where it is presented, the child is presented to the person. And the reason for this is just like in our own biology, we understand that a little growing, developing organism has a stronger chance of survival and higher development rate when they are imprinted with that emotional imprint, chemical imprint by the mother. This is a biochemical activation. So it's a very important part of the process. And it is introduced to both men and women. And finally, after that, that presentation process, the human, you know, depending on their level of awareness and the level of the spiritual work that they're doing, they can either continue that interaction or they can sever the connections with them. And I'll explain because it's more complex than that. But I'll stop right there.
Okay. Wow. That was awesome. That was great. Thank you for explaining all of that. Yeah, I was going to ask, so there's probably so many of us, or you said most, are involved in these programs and we just have no idea.
Yes.
We're just not aware of it. That's incredible. Were you
Yeah.
going to say something? Go ahead.
No, I mean, oh, there's so much that we can say, but it's really important that we do become aware, though. This is the thing. And the reason why is this hybridization program is not, we're going to get into the conversation of free will because what's going to happen is that people hear this and they are horrified. They're like, oh, I had a terrible experience with this being, and now, I have this experience. So we have to talk about the structure of this reality. We have to talk about who you are as a human, as a soul, the role that you play in the bigger picture. Okay, we are more interdimensional than we are physical, and the agreements that we come into when we incarnate into the physical, we are not aware of until we cultivate self-awareness. We don't know the laws of the universe. So it is up to you as organic consciousness to begin to define your level of awareness of truth. The more you wake up, the more you see. And I guess the most challenging part for the human in this level of waking up is to be able to maintain homeostasis in the body, spiritually, emotionally, and mentally, in the process of discovering the things that we sometimes cannot even conceptualize in our human mind. The hybridization program is the sustainability of an organism. Okay, and we are participating. When we incarnate into this physical earth, we participate in the sustainability of the organism. But your free will only plays a role with your mastery of your body. If you wake up consciousness and you enter into a high state of activation of your DNA, you can activate whatever you create. Everything is a creation. The words that you speak, your actions, the children that you bring in, and the hybrids that you're creating. And you change that when you change yourself. So this is why I'm very adamant about the understanding that there is no victimization in these programs. It is a very delicate dance of creation that we are so infant in understanding what creation is, but this is a wonderful opportunity to learn what it is actually.
Yeah, that was beautifully said. Yeah, beautifully said. Yeah, I've had some experiences recently where, okay, so what I was going to ask you about the different types of beings.
Yeah.
So with this, I've had contact with some grays, and it started off with mostly my Lyran star family. They had light blue skin, no hair. And they're the OGs. I love them. They taught me so much. They helped me, teach me how to meditate, how to activate my psychic abilities, my DNA, all of that. And then the Pleiadians started coming in, and Arcturians, and then sometimes I'll see grays. So I wanted to ask about your contact experiences with the hybrid program. So just from my personal experience recently,
Yeah.
I was laying in bed one night and I sensed three grays come into my room, but I couldn't physically see them, but I felt them so strong, like they were right there.
Yeah.
They were there. And
Mm-hmm.
there was one in like each corner of my room. One of them came up to me, put their hand up and did something to my belly
Yeah.
for a minute
Yeah.
and then disappeared. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll see them sometimes. More recently, I've been seeing a lot of seeing the Pleiadians. So seeing the Pleiadian side of the hybridization program. So
Yeah.
can you speak on that? Does there anything that comes up for you on that?
Oh, majorly, majorly. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's really interesting. you're super awake and you're super clear, so you can see, and that's so important. Thank you for doing that. And I hope that listeners that are learning how or having these experiences, first of all, don't be afraid what you're seeing. Go into it and question and ask. And so, can I ask you, Lily, how did you know whether they were Pleiadian or what they were? How did you know?
So one that's kind of like one of my favorite things, and what I help teach people is how to make contact. So I have contact experiences all of the time, but it's not
Yeah.
necessarily like physical.
Hmm.
um I At first it was visual with my eyes closed. I would see them. And so I got used to their energy, or I would see a vision of them.
Yeah.
And more in the past like 6 months, I've been developing new abilities where I can like see them with my eyes open, but it's like a silhouette of them.
Hmm.
So just recently I was taking a bath and taking a salt bath, then I was relaxing, and then suddenly it's like a portal opens up and I see a Pleiadian man, I see a Pleiadian woman, I saw an Arcturian there, and
Hmm.
I'm like looking at my shower wall, but
Yeah.
it's like bleeding into this reality, and then they
Right.
start doing energy work on me, doing energy work on my belly. So that's kind of how I see them. Sorry, I forgot what your
Right.
question was. Did that
Yeah.
answer?
No, that's awesome. That's great. Well, the reason why I asked you is because the point is that we need to practice our discernment. We have to learn how to discern and how to listen to the information, right? So
Mhm.
when these beings present themselves to us, always ask, and I always use my seventh and my eighth chakra because this is the main database of information for this realm. So this is where we access the Akash and so on and so forth. The DNA of the earth is encoded in the eighth and the seventh. So when we shine this crown chakra on top of these beings, we can see what our agreement is with them. Okay, if it's a big contract, it means we have some things to do. If it's a small contract, it means that, that's not such a important, or it's not such a productive or conducive agreement, so we can discharge of it. So this is important, and I invite you to practice this if you're an experiencer that's already seeing things. Why? Because there's a lot of advanced technology, we call it technology, that is being used in these interactions. And it's always very important to practice discernment and to listen. All of you are sentient in different senses. Find out which is your strongest senses, which of your senses is the strongest, so that you can use that as your intuitive tool,
Right.
and that will help you get the information you need. But these programs, so a lot of the contact that occurs is healing. That's something that I want to mention, and my good friend Preston Dennett talks beautifully about this. For those of you that don't know him, please look him up. He has tons and tons of research and videos about the conversation between healing and interdimensional contact. And this is important because what I discover is that for many humans, our initial filter is usually terror, because we're seeing something that completely dissolves our paradigm of truth. I mean, we're seeing these strange beings that we don't even familiar with. So when that occurs, we need to help ourselves come back into a base, kind of like a neutral base, non-judgmental base, to begin to observe what we've experienced in a more objective way. And that allows us to kind of notice what is actually occurring in these experiences.
Mhm.
Um, what you might not know is that sometimes our body needs support and it needs help in some areas. A lot of these visitations, like you mentioned, healing in the belly, I hear
Mhm.
this a lot with my women. They have them come and they will do healing here. What are they healing? They're healing the womb, they're healing parts of your body, they're activating aspects of you. And even though some of those are for implantation, the more connected you are to these beings, the more high vibration you are, the more higher your intention for creation becomes. So, whatever you're going to create, it's something that will pull forward humanity. It will pull
Mhm.
it forward, but it depends on you. It depends completely on how you maintain your vibrational frequency.
Right.
Because the moment that you duck down, all of your hybrids, all of your aspects also lower their frequency and their potential, because we are one. We are interconnected in this universe. So, uh, different programs. Pleiadian programs are interested in creating humans that sustain higher timelines in this realm. But I will mention something, that there is always an exchange with things. Okay, there's always an exchange, and we want to understand what is the exchange that we're making. We want to understand how, if any of our agreements are parasitic in any way. So in order to understand that, you have to have clarity. And sometimes the children that we create, um, they're encoded with trauma that we continue carrying ancestrally. So, of course, the organism that you're going to create is going to continue seeding trauma into the matrix. So, this is important. We have to be conscious of that and do the work. The other side of that is that if you are in a constant state of fear, helplessness, hopelessness, anxiety, and anger, what you're going to create is going to be counter creative. There's an entire physics to this. I talk about it on my YouTube channel a lot. But we become counter creative, and everything we create, even the children that we create, also become destructive. And there are darker programs, very dark programs, that benefit off those counter creations, such as we see on our earth with these um, more Luciferian kind of groups that are kind of inversions of sexual energy, which, our sexual energy is the most powerful primordial life force that the human has for creation, because encoded in sexual energy is the entire gene code of yourself and the whole. And DNA functions like portal, like a collection of portal vortices into all of the lineages that make up what you are. Okay, so it's really, really, really valuable.
Mhm.
So, did I answer your question? I don't even know if I answered.
We're just kind of going. No, this is good though. This is
Sorry,
this is
Lily.
good stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I just
Yeah.
realized what you were asking me before was discernment. Discernment is huge, and I had to
Mhm.
learn that. Yeah, that's something that I focused on with discerning
Yeah.
these different beings. It's very, very visual for me, so I'll usually see, an image
Yeah.
of them. Yeah, we were talking about the different types of programs because at first I thought it was like mostly grays. You hear about that a lot. And then I started seeing the Pleiadians, and they're very involved with me. So I
Hmm.
believe I'm a part of multiple hybridization programs.
Yeah.
I've
Okay.
seen one of the donors, we'll
Hmm.
call, who is also a hybrid, and then one
Hmm.
of them had blue skin. But then
Mm.
the Pleiadians are coming in, so I believe these are different.
Yes.
I mean, who
Yes.
knows how many hybrid children we have, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's a cocktail of DNA, absolutely. Oh, okay. So let me mention about the program. So there is a terrestrial program which is managed by the military, but
Mhm.
the core management of that is the draconian, because our shadow government is managed by draconian consciousness. It's a very militaristic model, which is how our model of our shadow government is also created.
Yeah.
And
And this would go into the SSP stuff, right?
exactly,
Yeah.
tremendously, exactly, because their primary purpose is creating clones. And these cloning programs are carried out by the nuclear biological warfare department, which collects genetic information to create cloning. Okay,
Mm,
and there is, in fact, worlds that are being supported by the DNA genetics harvested from this earth. Okay, from all humans here. This is where you start getting into the SSP programs, which I also was a part of as a child, being taken into programs that are being utilized to remote view as a child,
mm,
to watch and observe and spy. These kinds of programs, highly, highly intuitive children are utilized for these. And what will usually happen, they'll be taken out of a classroom or something, they'll be tested, they'll have these scenarios or dreams and experiences where they are in underground bases, Antarctica, or many, many other kind of militaristic environments like that.
mhm,
And sometimes they are groomed, like Manchurian candidate type of things, where they are fractalized into these alter kind of conscious aspects of themselves. This is a major part because this is an infringement
right.
on the unconscious state of humanity. But when the human wakes up consciousness, they can break those agreements as well. Okay, so
Mhm,
that's one of the programs, and the hybridization program in the human terrestrial realm is for these kinds of programs. So the next is the Pleiadian. Again, they're mainly focused on sustaining the matrix. And the grays there's so many different kinds of grays. And again, I've seen grays in Arcturian groups, Pleiadian groups, reptilian groups. So I don't really define them as one group in themselves. They are everywhere. And there are less conscious grays and more conscious grays as well. Some of them are like artificial intelligence, and some of them are like these interdimensional beings. So the programs, I don't believe that there is a gray program, a reptilian, a Pleiadian, because it's a cocktail. In order to create the organisms, they are multidimensional. So it means many species at once. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. And so a few of the gray looking beings that I've seen, I actually discovered that they were Andromedan, but it's like they were taking on the form of gray to be able to
Exactly.
lower their density. So I believe that those were the three
Yes.
grays that I was seeing were actually Andromedan.
Exactly. And that's another thing I want to mention, that it's not so much, don't get too caught up on the physical appearance that is presented to you, because a lot of this is also screen technology. Both the military also uses this, but it's usually chemically induced. And the interdimensionals will create this holographically in order to appeal to you in some way that you might be familiar with. Sometimes they will even present as your mother, as they did to me. Sometimes they will present to you as Jesus. Sometimes they will prevent something that you are comfortable with. They will present to you, but these are actually beings. And it's the same with races. That's why I really don't pay attention, like if it's just this specific race, because we are all a cocktail of DNA. Even them, they are genetically modified with other races.
Right, for
Yeah.
sure. And you mentioned some things a couple times about so free will, but then also if you like, if for anybody that's in the audience thinks that they may have kind of a negative contract or is involved in something that they would like to break off, what
Yeah.
would you suggest to them?
Excellent. So, number one thing, everything in this universe functions by certain laws, and one of those are resonance. Okay, so our vibrational frequency is the key to creating the experiences that we're having, both in the physical and the non physical realm. When we shift our vibrational frequency from a state of victimization, fear, helplessness, separation into unity, unconditional love, compassion, the nature of our experiences, physical and non physical, change completely. Okay. This is the number one protection. So I don't tend to believe so much in protection as opposed to, because we're creators, we have to understand. Because we have creators, there's a responsibility to that. We need to learn how to cultivate homeostasis in our body. And that is occurring through the nervous system. When we learn how to bring the nervous system into a state of calm, both the muscles, the chemicals in the body are functioning in a way that are promotive of this sustainability of source through the body. When we allow source to anchor through the body, uh, we it's almost as if you become invisible to the realm of more parasitic interactions. However, because we exist in the three-dimensional realm, because we are in the 3D here in the earth realm, um, our lesson in this experience, this through this temporary body, is to learn how to integrate duality. So we're always going to be experiencing contrast, even if you get to a high level, even in the 13th dimensional level, because we're made up of 13 dimensions, our physical bodies, and we're in dream time, we're navigating all 13 dimensions. That's where we meet all of these interdimensional beings. And each one of those dimensions has certain laws and parameters to the way that they interact with you. You have to get to know them. And you get to know them by exploring them. So interacting, for example, you interact with Pleiadians, that you will very quickly pick up on their kind of laws of exchange. What does
Mhm.
it mean? Sometimes people get downloaded massive amounts of information. It happened to me as well, but there's an exchange. They want you to give their message. So you have to be very discerning. What are you saying? Listen very carefully to the messages to understand if those are truly the embodiment of a neutral truth, or are they in benefit of some egoic aspect. Okay. So this is important for discernment in these communications and expressions. But the protection happens with discernment, which is a result of your embodiment of neutral state.
Mm-hmm.
Unconditional love is emerging from there. I just want to make sure I mention that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I wanted to ask also about symptoms that you may experience from being, and then I also wanted to touch on this a majority of it happening in the astral.
Yeah,
But okay, so I guess we'll go into the astral real quick. So a majority, it sounds like a lot of people have dreams. I haven't actually had any dreams of children, but I have had visions and I've felt them in my house
yeah,
speaking to me, but I didn't see them. But it's suddenly I get like a message and I can feel them.
yeah,
And by the way of also seeing them with my eyes open, but it's almost like I'm looking into this other dimension.
yeah.
So could you touch on, so a lot of this seems to be happening in the astral or in the sleep state. Could you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So the more we cultivate consciousness in the waking state, the more we're going to be lucid in dream state. Now, every ancient culture on this planet focused on the cultivation of practice of lucid dream state in order to learn how to navigate death. And that right there helps us understand that we already knew this information for centuries and centuries, that humans' most optimum operating state is when they are fully conscious and lucid in waking state. So we want to our dream time. See our physical body. Just look at DNA for example. Just 2% of your DNA writes everything in this body. All of the complex functions that we don't even haven't even begun to understand are being written by 2% of your DNA. The rest of that is is actually writing processes within what is called by biologists junk DNA. But
Mhm.
actually, this is the blueprint of information that helps link the morphogenetic field with the physical body. The morphogenetic field is the instruction manual that tells how to create this form in the physical. So,
Mhm.
what we are tuning into here is we are actually more non physical and we are actively non physical more
Mhm.
than we are physical. And so that tells us something in dream state. When we leave our body in dream time, we are accessing different brain waves. The different brain waves help the body either come into higher states of spinning or lower states. Okay, we function like vortices. The way that our body functions is like vortex. And when our vortex is stagnant and slow, we usually won't remember our dreams, we won't be conscious, we won't be aware. It'll be hard for you to be lucid in waking state.
Mhm.
When you start to clear out those blockages, you refine it and you can be conscious in this dream state. So that's when you start remembering, and you usually the memory will start coming back in snippets. There's
Mhm.
another element of something that's happening right now, though, in this very specific timeline that we're in. The veils are thinning to the point where more of human race is remembering their dream states. More
Mhm.
of human race are having visions like you're seeing now because it's so easy to tune into that. That
Mhm.
means that as a collective, all human organisms have risen the vibrational frequency to another octave in order to be in resonance with this another level of information of our reality. So
Mhm.
we have to cultivate that. And most ET contact or interdimensional contact is carried out in dream state because the body is matching these frequencies that they're
Mhm.
traveling.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that. Um, so the symptom portion of it, and I really wanted to touch on the healing and meditation part because that's
Yeah.
just so important. uh, Really working through that trauma. You mentioned like ancestral healing. Like whenever I mentioned Starseed Boot Camp, I was like in like a healing boot camp slash, discovering all of these spiritual principles, meeting all of these different beings. Just,
Yeah.
but it's so important with symptoms. So recently, I've been having symptoms of, well, tired, fatigue. Um, and also like anger, kind of like trapped emotions being
Hmm.
forced out.
Hmm.
So could you touch on
Yeah.
if somebody, even just like regular ascension symptoms, but also especially for like the hybridization program, or maybe even like 5D pregnancies if they're carrying,
Yeah.
which is something that I've been learning about recently.
Okay, so I'm actually in the process of launching a phone app that will help you identify symptoms for contact. Okay, so it's a very, very long list of symptoms. So I'm gonna go
Mhm.
through some of them with you, so that you can understand because there's so many. Okay, but
Yeah.
and you can kind of the application, the purpose is for you to define what kind of contact you're having. If it's military, if it's more interdimensional, or what kind you're having. So essentially, different symptoms you asked of the hybridization program. So
Mhm.
for men, it will be very powerful dreams and visions of sexual interactions. And sometimes men, and these are men that are already mature, they have careers, they have families sometimes, but they wake up with wet dreams. But this is not just regular. This is like they have dreams that they are on board a craft. They are interacting with interdimensional beings, very specific scenarios. I'm not talking about just random experiences. Okay. And so the purpose of it is the collection of their DNA. Okay. That's the whole purpose of that. So that's with men. Some men do experience PTSD as a result of these experiences because they are so vivid that they cannot integrate in their everyday life. So this is
Mhm.
something that I provide support for. You can reach out to me if you're an experiencer that's having these experiences, to integrate them.
Mhm.
uh, okay, so for women, okay, let's just continue for both implantations in the body. Okay, what does this mean? Usually the implantations are done around the wrists, around the ankles, the back of the neck, in the ears, and in parts of the skull. And the purpose of these implants also in the nose and in the sexual areas of the body, the organs of the
Mhm.
body. Okay. The purpose of these implants, depending on the program that you're participating in, is to monitor the body, the development, and to sustain certain vibrational frequencies. They are both biological and they're both etheric. Okay, so you will
Mhm.
feel them. Sometimes you will have marks on your body. People like me, I have 3 dots that appeared after my experiences.
Oh.
I have 3 dots every time that I am taken in these experiences. I have new 3 dots in my body. It's always three creating a shape, and there are other shapes that people also have. I have some incredible shares in my support group, but not necessarily scoop marks per se, because scoop marks is essentially a piece of your actual
Mhm.
flesh that's being taken off. I don't really see that too much, but I do see markings on the body. Sometimes the markings look like moles, okay, but they're very perfect. They're not just any regular irregular mole. They're exact little dots in the body that create shapes,
Mhm.
and these are also implants, or they will look like burn marks. A lot of
Okay.
people wake up with burn marks. When I had my contact experience, I had this area here super flushed red and almost as if it was like you burn your skin so much that it gets like scab, like scabbing
Mhm.
here. Okay,
Mhm.
so burn marks. People get nausea, really strong aches and pains in the body, like you got hit by a truck, because of
Mhm.
you're leaving one dimensional realm into another one. Those that are more physical will feel it in the body.
Mhm.
Those that are not yet connected with the physical will have it in a very strong dream state, but they will wake up completely drained in the next day, like you didn't
Mhm.
sleep, like you were interrupted in your dream.
Mhm.
Another symptoms Other symptoms have to do with tastes in your mouth. Sometimes some people wake up with very, very bitter tastes in the mouth. I find that those more visceral kind of side effects are usually as a result of military abductions. So just take a look at your experiences. If your experiences are very in an environment that's musty, that is heavy, that feels like it's underground, that feels like earthy, this is more like terrestrial programs. If
Mhm.
it's more clinical, but I mean pristine, very holographic, super, super high technology, light, a lot of light, a lot of holographic technology, and a lot of kind of, because these crafts are sentient organic technology. So it's more like a plasma substance that is coming in and out of solid state. So if you see those kinds of things, that is interdimensional. Okay. And usually, okay, so let's talk about the pregnancies. For the pregnancies, usually women will remember, they may or may not remember the dream state of the insemination process. The insemination process can be done either mechanically, or it can be done organically with another partner that is chosen and selected specifically for this. Sometimes the partner is selected as a human that is united with them in dream, in this experience interdimensionally. It'll appear as a dream, but it'll be an interdimensional union. And sometimes it's orchestrated in the physical. So, for example, they will meet someone, they will date, and that union, even if she doesn't become pregnant, or if she does, it creates the soul spark of life. That's the thing that people need to understand about the hybridization program. Any kind of exchange of energy is a creation, and it can create life. Because of the advanced technology and the way that they manipulate life force, that union can be turned into a hybrid. So that's why some people have hybrids with people that they don't actually have children with, but they're like, I don't even know like where this guy came from, but we got together and it was just a passionate, connection, and boom. That union that was created actually created something interdimensionally a lot of times. And they have that link of that hybrid that will link them forever, because these orchestrations are done even before you come into the physical realm. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So
It's just so complex. It's
there's
so
a lot,
complex.
because I've been working with this for several years now. And I mean, through my personal experiences and also research with so many experiencers from around the world, you begin to see that there are very specific parameters for this kind of side effect. It's not just something that we put together here. This
Right.
is this is a pretty profound study. And the idea is that we want to get some kind of help, because gynecologists it'll be very difficult for our women to go visit a gynecologist and to get support from them. And then there's this disassociative situation where they end up with PTSD. It's like, I went through a pregnancy, I was pregnant, then I had a miscarriage. The doctor says it's a blighted ovum, or it's the empty womb, So there needs to be support for this, because it is happening to people. It is happening. So we need to kind of provide support and education around that. So
Right.
there's so much, but I will leave it there. Some of the symptoms that are
Yeah.
that
Thank you
happen.
so much. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. Just to share a little bit of personal experience with me,
Yeah,
I've had recently times where I would have never even known unless I
yeah,
was informed.
uh-huh.
So they've been keeping me pretty in the loop with with what's going on.
Yeah,
Um, and then this more recent time, it's been totally different.
mm-hmm.
Physical, very physical, stomach growing.
Yeah,
It's very, so I've kind of seen both, like, two different sides of it. So this may
excellent.
be happening
Yeah,
and somebody may not even have any idea of
hmm,
it.
right.
Um, yeah, and I think with you, like, you have been aware of this for a very long time. You've had some really incredible and just wild experiences because you were supposed to go down this path and and become aware of all this and
Yeah,
have support groups and shed light on it. So thank you so much for what you're doing and what you're creating. But yeah, I think even some people may be experiencing this and they have no idea.
yeah, totally, totally. I know. And I really love that you mentioned you experienced both of them. That's really important to understand that, like me, I became pregnant when I wasn't partnered. And I mean, I thought it was just like crazy. The doctor would tell me, you probably really, really want to have kids, because actually that is something that supposedly happens for actors. When they believe that they're actually pregnant, they actually start having more of that hormone in the body. Okay.
Right.
So, It's very interesting. I mean, we are really powerful organisms and we can create a lot, but I think our level of self-knowledge is the key foundation to understanding this interdimensional experience as humans.
Mhm.
So it's important for us to get to know yourself. That way you understand what's truth. Don't listen to me, don't listen to anyone. Just look at your experience, what's true to you, and, compassionately dive into that information.
Right. And I feel like just the hybridization program, like it just started popping up for me a lot recently. And I feel like there's a reason why it's becoming more of a topic and more people are becoming aware of this.
Yeah.
So hopefully for anybody who's, watching, they can kind of reflect on this, or it may give them some answers, or maybe if something happens like down the road, then they'll, have some sort of kind of like a baseline or some information to look back on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like it's happening a lot, and it's about to become more popular that we are actually aware of it.
That's true.
Um, yeah, so before we wrap it up, I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you about meeting your hybrid children. Can you kind of share a little bit like what's that been like for you?
Yeah, so when I met my hybrid children, it was a very shocking experience. First of all, they don't look like humans. It's a combination of human genetics and some other genetics. They have more frail little bodies. Their eyes, the pigmentation of the eyes are just phenomenal, phenomenal colors that we don't even have.
Mhm,
The pupil itself is the size of the ocular socket. They're just huge eyes. And I guess the most impactful part is that they can see right through you. I felt completely seen, naked almost, because they could see everything about me since the beginning of my life. And I could see what they were thinking because I would see it telepathically in my mind as they were reading me. And I can also begin to recall the memories of having experienced with them. And that was the most shocking because I started to remember, and I remember having a flash of seeing myself holding the child here, seeing myself laying on the silver slab, and something being extracted out of my body. And to me, I mean, I've been practicing awareness for so many years. It was like, hello, where have you been? How do you not remember that you had these children? How is that possible? So you try to place it in your reality. Um, and I think that's the most difficult part for most women, but also men. They don't know what to do with this information. But the
mhm,
thing is that in reality, we don't understand the impact of knowing this information until you really understand higher laws of the universe.
mhm,
um, Under seeing these hybrids is more for them and their program than it is for you until you know what to do with it. So that imprint that happens when you meet them helps them develop and sustain that development because it
mhm,
creates a loop of energy.
mhm,
So that's your job. You did your job there. But
mhm,
what isn't usually taken account is that because you are an interdimensional conscious being, when you elevate and activate your DNA, you can also shift and change the timelines of your children in this lifetime and there. So remember, hybrids are not just the non physical children that we're seeing in these dreams, they are the children that you're bringing into this earth
mhm,
because those are also part of these programs. They are the sustainability of a matrix. We are inheriting ancestral programs and sustaining certain constructs. We are sustaining and supporting constructs by bringing life into this planet. So
mhm,
that's why the creation process is very important. We have to um, I teach a lot about alchemization and alchemical practices, transmutation practices of your
mhm,
sexual energy, refining that sexual energy. These are things that have been suppressed in our society from the common knowledge, but they were practiced by all the major royal families in history because those are the main bloodlines that have seeded life on this planet. It is the anchoring of soul consciousness into this collective. So
mhm,
that's the thing. So when we create consciously, we change and shift timelines. So to meet the children, I felt very sad to leave them,
mhm,
but it took me many years. until from 2013 to 2017 to begin to proactively try to communicate and connect with them.
Mhm.
And after a near-death experience, I began to communicate with them, and it helped me understand a higher purpose and to work with those contracts. So
Mhm.
my invitation is that we learn how to work with contractual experiential agreements. That way you can dissolve the ones that are not as conducive to
Mhm.
life, and to fuel the ones that are propelling humanity forward. Your children, the hybrid kids that you're creating, everything
Mhm.
creation is a responsibility. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, and these children, so where do you think most of them are going? I'm sure it depends on the program, that the
Yeah.
beings, but
Yeah.
could you touch on that real quick? Like, will
Yes.
they eventually come to Earth, or are they, up there in a spaceship? Are they being
Yeah.
put on different planets? What are your thoughts on
Yes. Well, every single planet in this multiverse is holds some level of life and consciousness. So there are many different programs. Um, Within the 13-dimensional layers, most of the hybridization programs are only to sustain this matrix and the
that?
supporting universes connected with this matrix. And what that means um, is that the draconian reptilian ones are more meant for parasitism,
Mhm.
and the higher ones, and I'm not even going to say names, it's not about Pleiadian and Arcturian, because that doesn't mean they're high, because some of those can be very parasitic as well.
Mhm.
It completely depends on the origin point of the data that's being shared. So we either sustain a balance in this organism through our consciousness. Now,
Mhm.
hybrids there are crafts, they look like honeycomb crafts. They're hybrid crafts. And a
Mhm.
lot of the children are maintained and raised in nursery like settings. These crafts have many different floors, many levels to them, which include, gene editing, biology, the extraction and in insemination rooms. And then there are layers of nurseries and layers of incubation tanks. So these honeycombs are not actually navigated by any one person. There are thousands of them that are navigated by mother crafts. And
Mhm.
those mother crafts are navigated by councils. Councils are created by several different species that are seeding those hybrids in
Mhm.
those crafts. Okay, so the hybrids are then sustained in the hybridization tanks until they are brought to life. Not all of them are brought to life, because for the more parasitic programs, it's not about bringing something into its own free will. It's about deactivating DNA in order to create artificial intelligence like, clone like organisms that can be manipulated
Mhm.
and brought into incarnation cycles that are less conscious. There are also deeper, darker ones where they only utilize the life force created by the fetus. Because the fetus is a potent life force, and that can be utilized either for destruction or creation.
Mhm.
So, there's a lot of purposes for them. And then, of course, some of them are brought into life, and they seed life either on this planet or many other planets.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you
Yeah,
so much for coming on. It was so nice
it's my
meeting
pleasure.
you. Yeah, and I'm excited to meet you at the conference. Do you want to share where everybody can find you, and like what are you up to? What do you have going on?
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. You guys can follow, if you'd like to work with me, you can find me on GeraldineOrozco.com. If you want to join the support group, you can find us at hybridmother.com. And I have a YouTube channel, Geraldine Orozco. I talk a lot about these topics, and also healing and meditation and activation of our DNA. So you can subscribe to that channel and connect with me there. And I will be at Journey to Truth conference, so please check us out next week. In 2 weeks, we're going to be in St. Louis. So definitely check us out there. Then I'm going to be in Glastonbury in August. So I really look forward to connecting with you there. You can connect with me and several other projects I have on my events page. So you can register and connect with me. If you're in the Bay Area, you can also join one of my live events here. So thank you, Lily, so much for having me once again.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. And everybody, if you want to drop a comment, share your thoughts, give this video a like, go check out Geraldine and her YouTube channel. And I will see you later, Star Brothers and Sisters.